Hello, friends. Welcome back to Heartscapes. I am Michaela, and I am grateful that you're here with me today. If you've been following along the last few days, then you know that we are in the midst of a 21-day practice journey, practicing with the system of Reiki and with poetry, bringing these two things together in a creative practice that leads us to the spring equinox on March 21st, 2022. We are combining a particular practice from the Japanese origins of the system of Reiki with poems that are a combination of ones I have selected and ones that viewers like you have submitted and recommended that we use. If you'd like to join me live on one of these videos, I welcome you to do so. If you want to directly engage with this practice and share a poem with the viewers, I welcome you to do so. Feel free to reach out to me in the comments or by email. So today we're going to be working with a poem by Amanda Gorman from her book, Call Us What We Carry, which was recently published. But first, I wanted to talk a little bit about the meditation practice that we've been using and that we'll continue to build upon as we move through this practice series. The practice is called Jashin Kokyoho in Japanese, and that translates as a method to focus the mind. Now, if you've been practicing along with me, you might be able to guess that where we are being invited to focus the mind in this method is in a particular point of our body, the low belly. This brings our attention in and down and into the center, the physical center of our body and the energetic center of our body, to an energy center point known in Japanese as the hara. The hara plays a really important role both in the spiritual practices of Japan and in the popular vernacular, the way in which people talk about their experiences. This experience of being centered, of being grounded, of being consistent, of being wholesome, of being whole, comes from a focus on the belly. When we focus on the belly in this practice, we also use a particular visualization. It's one that helps us to connect not only with the center of our own body, but then drawing that focused point of our mind out to fill the rest of our body and to surround us. And so we envision a spark of light at the center of our belly, and then we envision it growing brighter and stronger and expanding in all directions to fill us and surround us. And what this allows us to do is shift our attention, or perhaps better spoken, it allows us to focus our attention on two things simultaneously. Number one, the absolute essence of ourself, the center of ourself, our true self, the spark of our self that is always whole, that is always with us, that is connected to the universe around us. And then it allows us to expand our attention to that connection, wider and wider, out and out and out from our own self, our own discrete body, and out into the web of life, into the body of life around us. It's a simple practice, but one which, if we practice it regularly, can have a profound impact on how stable and secure and safe we feel, on how connected we feel to the people and the rest of life around us. It allows us to expand our sense of what is possible, expand our sense of what our life really is, gently over time, to a wider and wider reach. It's a beautiful practice and one that I use every day. When we use a practice like this in combination with poetry, as we're doing in this series, some interesting things can happen because we're bringing our attention to our center, what is most essential to our daily experience. And then we're welcoming in this poem, these images, these metaphors, this creative and beautiful combination of words that somebody else in some other time and place has put together. We're drawing that into our center, into this place of wide open possibility. And when we do that, some interesting things can happen. Some interesting insights can happen. Interesting connections can be made inside of our heart and our mind. Synchronicities begin to happen. So I invite you to be open to that possibility and to really engage this practice with me, either here today with this video or even just out in your life as you go through your day. Notice what happens when you spend a few moments breathing your attention into your own center and then expanding your attention outward from that center into the world. And then consider something that you find in the world. In this case, a poem, but it could be a tree that you encounter outside. It could be another person. It could be anything. Notice what changes for you when you consider the world from this perspective. So with that, I'm going to invite us to consider a poem from this perspective. So I'm going to invite you into a space of practice. In these practice sessions, we're keeping our practice pretty brief, but normally we would actually spend quite a bit of time, as much time as possible in this practice. And so if you like, at any point in this practice, you can pause the video and just stay with the practice. Just stay there as long as you like. Or you can do the practice outside of this video, and again, stay in it as long as you like, as long as you're able. For now, we're going to spend just a few moments together in practice. Okay. So let us gather our body, our breath, and our mind for practice. These practices, really one of their functions is to integrate, to bring together our physical body, the posture of our body, with the breath, with our mind. So our body, our breath, or our energy, and our mind all working together is how we create this magical space of practice. So letting your body feel supported and held upright, allowing the structure of your body and the structure of the things that you're sitting on or standing on to hold you upright, while allowing the muscles of your body to be soft and relaxed, particularly the muscles of your belly. And just taking a couple of breaths to invite this relaxation into your body. And as you do, invite your breath to come into posture for practice, letting the softness of your belly, the expansiveness of your body as you inhale, draw the breath in and down to rest lower in the body. If you have a tendency to breathe high in the body, keeping the breath up in the chest, this might take a little time. Just be patient with yourself. Gently relaxing the belly as much as you can today. And if it's helpful, perhaps placing a hand on the low belly below the belly button to help bring your attention. Draw the breath and the mind in and down. The mind coming into posture for practice, following the breath, so that you come to rest your attention in the hara, in the space 2 inches below your belly button and deep into the center of the body. Let's spend a few breaths drawing our attention here. And as you continue to breathe in and down, resting your attention in your belly, begin to imagine or sense a spark of light here. feeling or envisioning this spark in the center of your low belly. And envisioning that as you inhale, the spark grows brighter. It begins to expand in all directions. It fills you, it surrounds you. It continues to expand in all directions out into the web of life. Let's just sit in this visualization for a few breaths. Following the inhale, in and down, envisioning a spark of light at your low belly, envisioning it growing brighter, expanding in all directions to fill you and surround you with each round of breath. And as you continue to breathe in this way, I invite you to take in this poem, inviting these words to join your breath in and down in your center, noticing what they have for you today. This is Good Grief by Amanda Gorman. The origin of the word trauma is not just wound, but piercing or turning, as blades do when finding home. Grief commands its own grammar, structured by intimacy and imagination. We often say we are beside ourselves with grief. We can't even imagine. This means that anguish can call us to envision more than what we believed was carryable or even survivable. This is to say, there does exist a good grief. The hurt is how we know we are alive and awake. It clears us for all the exquisite, excruciating enormities to come. We are pierced new by the turning forward. All that is grave need not be a burden and anguish. Call it instead an anchor, grief grounding us in its sea. Despair exits us the same way that it enters, turning through the mouth. Even now, conviction works strange magic on our tongues. We are built up again by what we build, find, see, say, remember, know. What we carry means we survive. It is what survives us. We have survived us. Where once we were alone, now we are beside ourselves. Where once we were barbed and brutal as blades, now we can only imagine. Staying with your breath, just resting here in practice. Continuing to breathe, drawing your attention into your center and out as your light expands. I invite you to draw in this poem once again, this time noticing which words or phrases or images stand out to you today. What might be for you today? The origin of the word trauma is not just wound, but piercing or turning, as blades do when finding a home. Grief commands its own grammar, structured by intimacy and imagination. We often say, we are beside ourselves with grief. We can't even imagine. This means anguish can call us to envision more than we believed was carryable or even survivable. This is to say, there does exist a good grief. The hurt is how we know we are alive and awake. It clears us for all the exquisite, excruciating enormities to come. We are pierced new by the turning forward. All that is grave need not be a burden, an anguish. Call it instead an anchor, grief grounding us in its sea. Despair exits us the same way it enters, turning through the mouth. Even now, conviction works strange magic on our tongues. We are built up again by what we build, find, see, say, remember, know. What we carry means we survive. It is what survives us. We have survived us. Where once we were alone, now we are beside ourselves. Once we were barbed and brutal as blades. Now we can only imagine. Continuing to breathe. Let's stay with this practice for a few more moments. Taking 3 more breaths together here. And when you feel ready, giving yourself a gesture of completion and coming back into this virtual circle together. Friends, welcome back. I'm curious what stood out to you from that poem, from that practice. I was very struck at the end by this image of standing beside myself, us standing beside ourselves, and that turn of phrase. It really reminded me of a soul collage card I made, representing, the process of self-reflection, the process of coming to know myself much more deeply, provisioning myself much more deeply in the process. I love that this poem could help me remember this creative moment that I had with this card and the meaning that it had for me at the time and moving forward. I'm curious what came up for you, what stood out for you, what memories might have been jogged from this work. I invite you to share that with me below. And if you'd like to submit a poem to be used in this practice, I invite you to do that as well. And as you journey from here throughout the rest of your day, may you be deeply provisioned for the work that you're called to do in the world this day and all days. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow for our next stop on this journey. And until then, I love you. Bye-bye.